Welcome to the most important week of the year for the podcast industry. Welcome to Podcast Movement 2025.
Thank you for coming. Imagine for a minute your favorite podcast host, and I bet if you are like me, you can hear them in your brain. This is because there is an intimate relationship we developed with them. And I believe this is the superpower of podcasting. I'm Alberto Betella. I'm the co-founder of RSS.com. And today we're going to discuss the neuroscience and the psychology behind voice. So yes, podcasting does have a superpower, and this is intimacy. And intimacy is not created overnight. It's created after hours and hours of listening to your favorite host. And this intimacy leads to a very strong bond that ultimately leads to trust. Trust in the host, trust in the person who's talking to you. Now, it feels very personal. I'm not sure whether everyone experienced that, but when you listen to your favorite podcast, you feel the host is your friend. And this is because of this intimacy, really. If you are a podcaster, your listeners perceive you as a companion, actually. And this feeling is not a gut feeling. There are psychological studies started in the 50s. And they called this phenomenon parasocial relationship. Now, parasocial relationship is could be defined like a one-sided friendship. So it's a monodirectional friendship where the listener feels like they know the host as family or friends, but the host not necessarily knows the listener. And the more the listeners, the less likely the host is to know them. So there is no real reciprocity here, but the feeling, the emotional impact is real. So this is very, very, very important. And now, these concepts in psychology and media from the 50s, over decades, they have been corroborated and validated by neuroscience. So one factor underlying this parasocial relationship is the so-called prosody. So think of prosody like the music of speech, right? So rhythm, intonation, accent, and this creates a unique fingerprint that identifies humans, and it's an emotional fingerprint. So the beauty of that is that this fingerprint is recognized across cultures, across languages. So if you don't speak a language, but someone is talking, our brain is hardwired to understand, to feel empathically what that person is conveying. It can be sadness, anger, joy. So this is really deeply rooted in our biology and in our human nature, which is pretty amazing. But there is more. Now, further studies highlighted the core principles for this parasocial relationship. One is that when we listen to familiar voices, we produce oxytocin. So oxytocin is also called the bonding hormone. And it's the same molecule that mothers produce when they breastfeed their child, or parents produce when they are with their family, with their children. So it's pretty amazing. And these studies show that when we listen to a familiar voice, like our favorite podcast host, we produce oxytocin. On top of that, there is also a mechanism that's triggered, and it's called mirror neurons. It's at the base of empathy. It activates the areas in the brains connected to emotions. So this means that if our host is laughing, our brain is laughing. If our host is melancholic or very emotional, we feel the same emotion. After all, empathy comes from ancient Greek. It means it was empathos, so feeling into. So this is really what empathy means, and mirror neuron do. So this leads us to say that voice really is tightly intertwined with our human nature. So, and this is the whole base of how podcasting is such an important, intimate, and rare medium. So we find it very interesting. There is another factor also that strengthens further this trust. And this factor is called mere exposure effect. This effect consists of being exposed to someone familiar over time. Exposure can be through voice, through listening, right? And by exposure, you don't have to be physically there to state the obvious. Think about when we listen to a podcast and we are doing something else. Even in intimate moments, we could be at home, we could be washing our dishes, doing chores, commuting. So this is what exposure to a familiar voice, on top of these mechanisms like mirror neurons, oxytocin, do to strengthen that trust. So, in other words, we could say that trust, this bond, is the foundation for growth. If we have a podcast and we generate this bond and trust with our audience, this is paramount for growth. But this is also means that I have to be consistent with how my audience perceives me, and I have to follow my values. I have to be consistent with the values. And this is because it's a responsibility I have towards the listeners. Trust is created and crafted over time. It's not going to happen overnight. You need your listener to listen to you, to be exposed to your ideas, to your voice, to yourself. So it's very hard to achieve or to build, but it's very quick to lose. So an error or a factual mistake is forgiven easily. But if you deliberately mislead your audience, then it's a loss of trust. And then there's nothing you can do to get back. So let's say ethics in this context is a non-negotiable. Now, talking about growth could be growing your audience, for example, the downloads in your podcast or the number of listeners, or even sustaining you as a creator through monetization. And in this context, in the podcasting context, a popular way to sustain your creation are host-read ads. So host-read ads are endorsements of products or services that the host discusses or talks about during an episode. They're very different from programmatic advertisement. Programmatic advertisement are those ads that are just injected in certain slots in an episode. And usually it's a different voice actor. So it's really, this bond is not present there. So it's clearly from what we just understood and learned from the neuroscience and the psychology underlying this social, parasocial relationship, host-read ads are very powerful. They actually, in terms of CPM, so earnings, they can be 3x or higher compared to other form of ads. That's fine. So that's one way you can sustain. And it works so well because your audience listen to you. And basically, when you are recommending a product, they don't hear an advertisement. They hear a friend telling them, oh, you should try that. That's literally what's happening. One challenge in these regards, host-read ads, it's scaling. You could have host-read ads that are generic, maybe impersonal. But in many cases, you would want host red ads to be custom tailored to your audience or to segments, sub-segments of your audience. So, for instance, I could say, good morning, New York. Good afternoon, Barcelona, right? The challenge here with scalability is that the host needs to record multiple variants of an advertisement or an endorsement, and so this doesn't scale. You cannot easily record 1,000 variants, one per city or even more, depending on what you want to target and to change. But this is where technology steps in. So AI, as of today, is capable of cloning voices of podcast hosts and voices in general. And here, I'm not talking about deep faking. I'm talking about consent. You can create a voice model of yourself, and you could literally apply text to speech. So you just type something, and basically you are reading something without really having to record it, right? It's just faster. And in this context, my business partner, Ben, and myself, we worked for a few years on a patent that proposed a new technology. The patent was published in October 2024. We are currently starting to really looking for partnership to build it. And the commercial name of this technology is Ghost, G-O-S-T, AI. So what this does, substantially what we do here is creating a voice model of the podcaster with the podcaster consent, and then the podcaster can create theoretically infinite variants of hosted ads. You can imagine, you can have placeholders in the ad, and you can change the context, you can change the location, you can change whatever you want. And in seconds, so really it's effortless. And we call them ghost red ads. So again, this is an example of how you can scale with technology. And again, this embeds safeguards, ethical safeguards, and an ethical framework. So this is an example. But now, if we zoom out, okay, this lesson is not about advertisement in podcasting per se. Advertisement and hosted ads are one good example, one very well-performing example of how you can sustain yourself as a creator. But really, the takeaway for me is that podcasting, it really values human connection. It's really deeply rooted in our human nature. So once we are aware of that, and we demonstrated it with scientific peer-reviewed studies and research, once we are aware of this superpower, then we need to make sure we constantly align our values as podcasters, as people, with our listeners. We really don't want to betray them. So I guess this is about being aware of what we can do as hosts and where we can reach with our voice. So podcasting is not just a medium, and our voice is not just a brand, you know. So really, it is a very extraordinary and intimate and rare bond. And I guess that's why we are all here to celebrate it together. So thank you. I had a thank you page. Do you have any questions?
Oh, I've got the microphone. Got the mic. Oh, hello. If you wanted to start that from like basically nothing and you wanted to create like a podcast where your main focus was parasocial relationships, how would you go about that?
That's the beauty of it. You don't need to focus on the parasocial relationship. Parasocial relationship is what underlies podcasting. What you need to do if you want to leverage this powerful medium is just create. If you create a podcast on something you're passionate about and you resonate in your listeners, then parasocial relationship is natural. That's the beauty of it. So when we showed before oxytocin, mirror neurons, this is part of the it's called parasympathetic system. So it's a system you don't control, like your heart. We cannot stop our heart, right? So that's the parasympathetic system. So podcasting, in a nutshell, taps into this unconscious system. It's there, but you cannot really control it. So by podcasting and sticking to your values, being consistent, being regular. So the mere exposure effect means that you have to be regularly release episodes once a week or whatever is your cadence. That's it. Parasocial relationship will automatically appear with all the benefits of it, and which is growth in general. So people will start with word of mouth, because they really like you, and they feel you're their friend. And that's also, you don't need to do anything to tap into the parasocial relationship. You just need to create great content.
Thank you so much.
Welcome. Any other question?
Hello, my name is Mercedes. Thank you so much for your topic today. I'd like to, if you can expand a little bit on prosody, oxytocin, and the mirror neurons, the prosody of a voice. Like, I'm listening to your voice, and I would recognize it. I would recognize your fingerprint, but it's a little more there. I love this.
Yes. So there are several mechanisms, and I highlighted the most salient ones. For example, in terms of oxytocin, mirror neuron, we could go down a rabbit hole if we wanted and say, okay, it's the limbic system in the brain, the amygdala, the hypothalamus, they're all the cortical lobe. They're all intertwined in this wiring, but prosody. The reason why I brought up prosody is that when creating our patent, and it took really 4 or 5 years, like it was very hard because because you have a reviewer and examiner and you need to it's a to and from to try to demonstrate really that it's something you're doing is novel. So prosody, it was one of those keys where when you build a technology, you need to formalize what you learned from these studies. So I listened to my favorite podcaster, and I know I produced oxytocin because this study and the other study demonstrated that. I know my mirror neurons are activated, so I feel empathic, etc., etc. That's great. But then when you sit down and you have to build a tech like Ghost AI, you say, okay, that's all good, but what am I going to do? Do I measure oxytocin in the listener? What, do I give them a blood test every time? Like, it's impossible. So you need to formalize in a way where you can scale. Prosody is the key. When you have a sound, a voice, the prosody, you have a fingerprint. You don't know why you understand that fingerprint belongs to someone. So you have to identify those components. So that's it. So the components of voice, so prosodic, there are prosodic components and also spectrogram components, to be a bit more technical. So you can have a spectrogram and analyze. It's like a waveform. It's math, literally. So you can take my voice and it's math. And these are those features that then you input in an AI model, call it AI, call it machine learning, and this model is trained on those specific and different features to understand the fingerprint and then reproduce it. So when you have a generative adversarial network, an AI that can clone your voice, for instance, how do they do that? They are decomposing your voice into this prosodic feature. They're reading the spectrogram and representing these features with number. At the end of the day, if I wanted to simplify the approach, just to give a sense, maybe my voice in the last 20 seconds, my prosody was, 0.37 out of 1. And yours is 0.33. I'm making it up. So that's how it works. So that's prosody. And then there is more. There is utterance again. So utterance is the minimum viable core sentence that has a meaning. And this is not a grammatical sentence. So that utterance is a layer on top of prosody. So utterance means an utterance can be, wow, it already means something, or could be, pass me the salt. So that's very interesting. So this also gives some semantics to the conversation. Did I address your question? So prosodic features are the features I need ultimately to represent a voice mathematically. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of the day.